evening, ladies, gentlemen, and viewers of all ages. Unfortunately, all good things do have to come to an end, and it is with great sadness that I have to announce that this is going to be the final race of this esports design Porsche Cayman Cup Invitational, and we are in the county of Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, and Derbyshire all into one, depending on where you are, around this wonderful Donington Park circuit. I'm joined this evening, as always, by my partner in crime and co-commentator, Tim Fulbrook. Tim, it's been a fantastic season so far, hasn't it? But it's a shame it has to end. But if we've got any way to end it, I'm pretty sure you'll agree that Donington Park is definitely going to be a bit of a cracker to finish off on, isn't it?
Yeah, hi David, and hello to everyone watching on from wherever you are. I'm really excited for this one. Look, the championship was decided at the previous race at Snetterton in mixed circumstances. Luca Burke, Zansho Simsport driver, taking the title deservedly, let's say. He has been the man to beat. So I'm seeing this race as somewhat as a postseason, as a tribute tour, a reunion tour. You know, let's get the guys on track. Let's have a really barnstorming event, which we've had all season. No pressures for the title, I suppose. Let's just get out there and have some good racing. And Donington Park is a circuit that definitely lends itself to some of the action that this Cayman Cup has provided.
Absolutely. And of course, last week we were at Snetterton 300 circuit where Ross McGregor eventually took the win in that one circa to Jenson Button having to stop midway through the event, which is a real shame. Of course, he was at the front of the pack before that point after some incidents, shall we say, in the first couple of corners, which did demote eventual champion Luca Burke right the way down the order, but he did finish in the points we'll come to in a second. Jack Noller got his first podium after his third race in the series, with Dean Allen rounding out the top three, closely beating David Bellinger, who finished in fourth place. Regan Mitchell, Jack McIntyre, Steve Hinden getting himself into the points in the penultimate round. I'm sure he'll be hoping for more this evening. John Clements, Oscar Sandberg, and the aforementioned Luca Burke finishing in the top 10. And as we mentioned, that does mean that Luca Burke does, in fact, win the championship. He cannot be caught this evening. Ross McGregor, with that win, puts himself up into second place with Jenson Button and Al Buncombe only a few points behind. Rumley Jensen, Regan Mitchell, Jack Noller, Noel Brinkman, Oscar Sandberg, and Dean Allen round out the top 10. And like you said, Tim, yes, the championship has already been wrapped up. Luca Burke will be having a fun race this evening, I'm sure. I'm sure he'll be looking for lots of action, but there is plenty of content up and down the grid for us to keep an eye out for, because there's quite a few positions in that top 10 that haven't been decided yet, hasn't there?
And really, the battle's going to be for that second place. Look, best of the rest is definitely an achievement in itself, considering just how close this championship has been on track. So that battle between Buncombe, Button, and Ross McGregor, who's leapfrogged his way up to second place off the back of that victory at Snetterton. Only a handful of points separates those three. So I'll be really excited to see how they treat each other out on track to bag that second place.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump quickly now to a hot lap around this Donington Park circuit, as you see coming out of the final corner onto that start-finish straight. Not the longest start-finish straight in the world, as they come down towards Redgate into the first corner, braking probably just after, as you can see, going slightly onto the pit marker. You've got the helmet cam at the moment, which is a good one to see, but coming down the crane occurs, fantastic bit of run down here, isn't it, Tim? It's one of those where in these GT4 cars, with the lack of aerodynamics that the GT3s get, it's going to be a bit of a shaky one going down to the old hairpin, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you're just holding on to some extent and really trying to settle the car as you swoop over to the left and then through the right at the old hairpin. It's so difficult to get the car transition from tracks one side to the other, and then up into McLean's here, you're over to the left-hand side, braking and trying to go right, and it just keeps giving this circuit such a unique challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Going up the hill towards Coppice, so back onto coming up to the back straight now. Again, such a difficult corner, as you can see the wheel in this GT4 really kind of seesawing around from one side to another as they go onto the back straight, onto the Starkey straight down towards the S's. This is where we go onto the Grand Prix circuit rather than the National, of course. Left for Grand Prix, right for National, and they'll go down towards the Melbourne Loop, which is, interestingly, when you look at it on the track map, it's obviously squared off at the end, but it's going to be one of those key overtaking spots, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it's really your best chance at a pass around this lap, and with the final corner at Goddard somewhat of a mirror image of the previous corner, it's really about getting in deep late on the brakes. You can really send one up the inside, but it is an action point just as much as it's an overtaking point. We see plenty of drama kick off in those final 2 corners as drivers look to overtake the car in front.
Yeah, absolutely. And big thank you to Jack Noller for giving us that hot lap coverage there. Very nice of him to do. Qualifying will be underway in just a couple of minutes' time. In fact, it already has started, so we'll pan over to that in a couple of minutes. Of course, 15 minutes is normal for qualifying and then a 60-minute race, Tim. And if we've got anything like we had for the first 4 races of the championship, knowing what Donington Park is like, of course, it is one of those slightly narrower circuits, but overtaking certainly going to be quite common, I would expect.
Yeah, well, David, I promised last week that I would get this stat for everyone for qualifying tonight, and I've added up the pole margin, so the gap between pole position and second place across the 4 rounds we've had so far. Would you like to take a guess, DW, before I give you the answer?
Oh God, I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? It's the closest one gets the point, but I would say probably, I don't know, a couple hundreds of a second.
Well, unfortunately, it's a little bit more than that, so you're kind of undone my hard work. But just over 0.3 of a second. So, but across 4 qualifying sessions, 0.3 of a second means that on average the gap is below a tenth at every single qualifying session we've had this season. So I'm hoping that tonight at Donington Park it doesn't buck the trend at the final chance.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start to see some times coming on at the moment. Before we get to that, a quick mention based on some things that have happened in this Invitational over the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, Steve Hinden, of course, who is the mastermind behind this and the mastermind behind pretty much the majority of the liveries that you're seeing out on track at the moment as Jenson Button puts himself second on the grid, has unfortunately been let down by the main title sponsor of the series. So if you have enjoyed this at any point, which much like myself and Tim have, then there is a Just Giving link that's been set up in the description of this video, which has been done by Podium Sim Racing's Tim Weller. And if you do want to donate anything to the cause to support this first season and show your support to what's been a fantastic series, and hopefully we'll have more to come, then head into the description and jump onto that and donate as much or as little as you can. I'm sure it'll be very richly thanked from Steve himself. But anyway, qualifying underway. Just under 11 minutes left. Oscar Sandberg, Tim, sitting at the top of the timing board. But like I say, we can see you're kind of proving your point from your stat a minute ago. Very, very close up at the top of the timing boards at the moment. Yeah,
already that gap is below a tenth, 0.07 of a second separating Jenson Button. And just as I say that, Al Buncombe goes the top of the timings with a 34.4. So that's a really quick time. But Button is responding, currently 0.4 up on his best time as he comes down into the Melbourne hairpin. He's looking in fine fettle in this Rocket Esports Cayman, and then climbs the hill up towards Goddard's. If he does keep that advantage, he will go to the top of the pile. So as the clock ticks down to 10 minutes to go through Goddard's painful corner, it seems to go on forever and it's incredibly slow. But as he runs out onto the start-finish straight, and Button, well, he improves, but it's not enough to take pole position. He looks like he lost some time in those final 2 corners, and it looks like John Munro's jumped up to second.
Yeah, I wonder if as you went through the S's, I noticed he did take quite a significant amount of curb on that second apex. I wonder if that might have invalidated the time, perhaps. Interesting to see. But Regan Mitchell comes across the line with a 1:35.1. That puts him just over half a second back of current pole position man Al Bunker with, like I say, John Munro 0.02 of a second behind. We've got Dean Allen, who's currently 0.4 up, so that's going to shift him above Gabriel Lafreniere in the EGT Challenge car. Just ahead of him, 19 cars in the server this evening, of all shapes, well, I say all shapes and sizes, of all differing abilities, rather, because of course, being a spec series, we're not going to have different shape sizes. And here is series designer and mastermind Steve Hinden in the number 80 machine. And of course, I mentioned it last week, Tim, you've written it down, I understand. We've got to ask him before the end of this evening about that little mole that's on the back end of his car.
Yeah, well, it's certainly it's gone digging now, hasn't it, through the gravel at the S's, and actually hops back to pit lane. Yeah, some little details that Steve's dropped in on so many of these liveries. It's fantastic to see. It's not just a car getting painted. It really is, a unique and individual bit of design done by Steve for all of these drivers. So I know they're all very appreciative. But here's Ross McGregor, winner last time out. He's up on his time, so let's see where he finds himself in the order, crossing the start-finish line any second now on the run out of Goddard's, and he jumps up to pole position, a 1:34.416. a little over half a tenth faster than Alex Buncombe. So it's very close at the top, a second separating the top 9.
Yeah.
And John Clements also up in his time.
Yeah, absolutely. 7/10 up at the moment. So that's going to put him just above Regan Mitchell, depending on how he manages to improve as well. I can see Jenson Button's just dropped back into the pits, as has Yannick Valenduk as well. So we'll see who comes on. But everyone except for David Bellinger, who came 4th place last time out at set of time. We see John Clements coming down into that Melbourne loop that's squared off edge of the corner, coming back up, and like you say, going to the almost the carbon copy, the polar opposite into Goddard's. Like you say, it's such a horrible corner. You feel like it's never going to end. Take that late apex, and you'll try and get on the power as early as possible onto that straight, kicking up a little bit of grass on the inside, but he manages to get out of there cleanly enough, and he's 8/10 up at the moment. So that's going to put him 6/10 off at the moment, puts him best of the rest, say. Al Buncombe 3/10 up at the moment, so it's going to put him top of the timing board if we can keep that time. And as he does, at 1:34.110, that's a blistering lap time.
That's absolutely rapid, but the times are so close. But he found a couple of tenths in both the second and third sectors, so he did have an advantage, a significant pace advantage, in fact, in those final 2 sectors. Ross McGregor, though, looking to respond immediately. 2 tenths up on his time at the moment, which is enough really to get a little bit closer, but he's going to have to find something round Goddard's to knock out Buncombe off provisional pole positions. He pulls over to the left-hand side. Wow, look at that again. He goes quicker, 0.06 of a second, still the gap at the top. So impressive stuff as Gabriel Lafreniere now looking to try and get inside the top 10.
Absolutely, yeah. Sharp and pointy end at the moment. Jesus Christ, it's very, very close to the top at the moment between those two. Both of them currently in the pits. We've got 6.5 minutes left of qualifying, so definitely still time for this to improve. And I would imagine that the track is getting more and more grippy as these times go down, because we've got a fast track at the moment, no wind to cause any issues there. I see David Bellinger putting himself up into 12th place, set a little bit further back by Gabriel Lafreniere, who are just riding alongside, going a little bit fast. He's into the top 10 as well, like you said there, Tim. And yeah, that top 10 looking pretty spicy at the moment, if not a little bit behind the eventual top 2 at the moment.
Yeah, very close looking. I mean, if you look down the timing tower on that left-hand side, it's a second that covers the top 10. And you think how, if you push that little bit harder, or maybe just give that little bit more towards the end of the session, you might be able to find a couple of tenths that can get you right up into that top 10. And Steve Hinden at the moment, the only person out there on a hot lap looking to improve on his best lap time at the moment, which was a 35.9. So really any improvement could see him jump up. We just hear he's lost the time through that middle sector. But looking at that order, a standout performance to me already is Gabriel Lafreniere and also Regan Mitchell. Mitchell, who spoke to us at the end of the previous round at Snetterton, said how disappointed he's been with his qualifying performance. He knows he doesn't go well in qualifying, and he started every race outside of the top 10, but managed to find his way into the points in every single one of those events. He's one of only 2 drivers to have scored points in every race. So as we see, Steve Hinden did improve, but he stays 14. So yeah, it's nice to see Lafreniere and Mitchell inside the top 10, hoping those guys can bag themselves some more points this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, if you're a good racer, then the qualifying doesn't necessarily mean everything. But if you can get into the top 10, it's certainly going to have those benefits. You've got Denise Pope at the moment in the number 79 Wild Things Racing machine. She's just over 2 seconds off at the moment, but looks like she's up on her current time. So she'll be looking to go above Noel Gibson, just in front of her in the 420 machine, and probably is setting her sights on Tim Weller in the 119 machine. It goes very deep into the S's, I would imagine, looking at how sideways that was. She's either invalidated the lap or lost the time. We've now got Matt Atkins in the average Matt Cayman, the 21 machine. 1.3 seconds up at the moment, Tim. That is an incredible gain, and we'll see whether we can continue that over these next couple of corners. But what a performance he's having so far compared to the time he's already set on the timing boards.
Well, fingers crossed for Matt. We know he's had a difficult season so far. I remember joining for the test race before the first round at Imola, and he was having all kinds of technical issues. So it's nice to see him racing this evening and hopefully getting himself up the order. So let's see where Atkins can go. But Regan Mitchell, who we were just talking about in the SimSport Racing Cayman, improving and goes up to 6. That's a really nice time from Regan, 34.7. Sees him move just a tenth outside of Jenson Button's time on the third row. But some good laps coming in, and with 3.5 minutes left, these guys are really starting to work out now. Right, where is the time? Where have I dropped time? Where can I find it? And where can I maybe have a margin to just push that little bit harder and see if I can bag myself a position further up the order?
Yeah, absolutely. Yannick Valenduk, as he's coming towards the S's down the Starkey Straight, 2/10 up at the moment. He manages to get through the S's reasonably comfortably. A little bit of squirming on the exit of that second apex, coming down towards the Melbourne Loop. Heavy braking zone. You want to brake at that top board on the right hand side, the one with the little Donington Park logo, I think it is, on there. Try and get the thing stopped and then back up the hill to do Goddard's all over again. You're going to wish you didn't have to do it again, but going to have to do that one more time. Still 2/10 up, so it's going to be close, if not on the precipice of getting into the top 10. But he's lost a little bit going out of Goddard's and does improve Tim, but not enough to get him above Dean Allen, who has subsequently dropped his car back into the pits, maybe to start a one final stint.
Yeah, that was a nice time from Valenduk there, but a shame not to see him get inside that top 10. His best qualifying position has been 16th so far this season, so it's nice to see him improving on that at the last chance of asking. So Steve Hindon, though, for 7/10 now actually, through the Melbourne hairpin, but then losing it on the exit. I wonder if he was a little put off by John Munro slow on the exit, but still 4/10 in hand as he rounds Goddard's. Some understeer. Wow, understeering all the way around there, just running out. I think he's lost a 10th. Yep, 2/10. It's running down towards the line, and he does improve, but he doesn't move up the leaderboard.
Yeah, you see David Bellinger 3/10 up at the moment as he comes into Goddard's. Yeah, it's unfortunate for Steve. I think, like you say, Tim, he was maybe slightly put off by John Munro being on the apex, but I think John did all he could do there as David Bellinger cross the line, puts himself 6th. So continuing that upward arc of improvement from round number 1, isn't he, Tim?
Yeah, it's fantastic to see that. I mean, qualifying 10th, 11th, 9th, he's found himself towards the end of that top 10. But now, after that standout performance at Snetterton that saw him, he held on to a podium position for so long and now ended up finishing 4th. So to see him already up the order, really great to see. But Jenson Button improving.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to come across the line. Can he get pole position? Does improve. He doesn't improve. He's just 0.003 of a second off of his current best time of 1:34.2. Regan Mitchell 2/10 up at the moment. So that's going to shift him up, presumably to 5th, you would expect, above Jack Nollo, just behind Jack Monroe, assuming he doesn't lose or gain any time that he has. But most of these guys on to their last couple of flying laps. David Bellinger, Gabriel Lafreniere, Dean Allen, Yannick Valenduk, and Noel Gibson aren't going to be putting in another time. He's got 3/10 Regan Mitchell if he can keep it clean through Goddard's, which has been a corner that seems to have usurped a couple of people, but he's kept it pretty clean through there. So he's got 3/10 on the table and puts himself up into 5th. And it's getting very, very close at the top of these timing boards as we round out the last 30 seconds of qualifying.
Yeah, it's really closing up, but Button looks to be responding, and he is quicker now. He's a couple of tenths up on his best time. He needs to find a 10th, David. That's all he needs, 1/10, and he'll find himself starting this final round at Donington on pole position as he goes through the S's. Looked fairly clean. Look how much curb they use on the right-hand side there. It's incredible as they go through that chicane and on the run down to the Melbourne hairpin. But with the checkered flag out, this is going to be Button's last chance to respond.
Absolutely, yeah. 10th up at the moment. Oh, a little bit of sideways. He's lost the time, and yeah, you could see him get very sideways coming out of the Melbourne Loop, and unfortunately he's dropped the time. Jack Noller, one of the top people out on track. Al Bunkum's retired to the pits, so he's not going to improve out. Jack Noller currently a 10th up, so he'll be looking to looking to get that 5th place back off of Regan Mitchell, who's put in a stellar qualifying display. Ross McGregor, doesn't manage to improve, so he is going to be starting 2nd at best. See, Jenson Button, as we saw there, he's going to be starting 3rd at best. You would expect that the likes of John Monroe are going to be looking, and Jack Noller, perhaps, who we're riding with at the moment, they'll be looking to try and usurp a couple of these 2/10 up at the moment. So that's going to put him ahead of John Monroe. If he keeps that, but gets oversteer into the Melbourne Loop, you can see the back end step out, and unfortunately, that's all of that time lost. And it's going to be, Tim, Al Bunkum in this final race, starting from pole position.
Yeah, that's nice to see, isn't it? We know Al's had a bit of a mixed experience in this championship. Saying that, he finished 4th in the opening 3 races and then had that collision on the opening lap at Snetterton. But for Bunkum, who's locked in this fight for best of the rest with teammate Jenson Button and Ross McGregor, a point for pole position, you never know, that might be the deciding factor in the fight for that position. So yeah, it's great to see. And the order, just looking down at the timing screen, the top 11 were separated by a second at the end of that one, and they kept to my trend of qualifying being separated by, well, the pole margin being only a couple of hundredths, 600ths of a second, deciding the top row between Buncombe and McGregor. So nice to see that it's business as usual this evening, David.
Absolutely, yeah. Set up for a fantastic race. The sun is shining. It's 3 p.m. local time in the server at Donington, so we're set up for what looks to be a nice dry race. Nice fast track, decent track temperatures as well. And Al Buncombe, like you say, is going to be starting off and leading the grid off in about a minute or so's time from pole position. Ross McGregor's alongside him with Jenson Button and John Munro rounding out the second row. Regan Mitchell and Jack Noller sat just behind those two. David Bellinger and Turn 1 Esports' Oscar Sandberg is the only one of the Turn 1 team who's been able to make it tonight. Unfortunately, you see slightly smaller grid than we're used to. After this one, a couple of guys had to drop out. Luca Burke being the notable absence due to some connection issues he unfortunately alluded to a little bit earlier on this afternoon, which is a shame. Then again, he wouldn't have had a guard of honour, I'm sure. Don't know how they'd have managed that in something like this. But John Clements and Gabriel Lafreniere running at the top 10. Dean Allen and Yannick Valenduk rounding in 11th and 12th. Steve Hinden and Mark Raddenbury 13th, 14th. Tim Weller and Denise Pope 15th and 16th. Noel Gibson, Alan Leon, and then Matthew Atkins rounds out the grid. Big welcome in to everyone watching on the YouTube stream at the moment. So welcome into Porsche Sport. As always, early check-in from them an hour and a bit before the stream started. You love to see them being prim and proper. Good to see them being on time. EGT Challenge TV, obviously supporting their three in the form of Bellinger, Lafreniere, and Leon, of course, on the grid this evening. Campos Drum, also following the EGT guys. Jorge Villar and Valum Thor Gaming, who's supporting Denise Pope this evening. So, Tim, as we see Al Buncombe leads this grid off on the formation lap, hopefully we're going to see, well, I'm going to say hopefully, I'm going to throw it out there. I think we're going to see a fantastic close to this season.
I definitely would agree with you, David. I think, yes, we've got this battle for second place, but also it's a race win. You know, it's a victory. It's another strong finish. It's up for grabs. And Alex Buncombe has had, some difficult points this season, and he will want to assert himself as a competitor amongst the grid. Ross McGregor, off the back of his performance last time out at Snetterton, will be wanting to show that it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't down to Jenson Button's retirement. Then in third, the man I just mentioned, Jenson Button, would be proving that he could have won that race at Snetterton. He has the pace to win the race in this championship. And then behind John Munro, looking to bag himself best finish of the season. Regan Mitchell in fifth. And then, David, you start looking at Jack Noller, who's been someone to really contend with in the first two rounds that he's competed in. So the previous two races, Kyalami and Snetterton. David Bellinger up there as well. It's just great. Look, this grid is absolutely stacked. But if I had to point out someone a little bit further down, it would be Mark Raddenbury, who's been incredibly consistent this season. He's finished further down the order, around the 20th position. But tonight, with a slightly reduced grid, it's a really good chance for the Dunn Motorsport driver to get himself some points. He's gone forward in the race on almost every occasion, at every time of asking, he's improved. So let's see if he can bag maybe that 10th place or a little bit higher. It's going to be a challenge, but I think that's Mark's goal tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings us on to a very good point. Of course, we've mentioned it every week, and tonight is not going to be an exception, of course. Formula One style points as we enter race week for the Bahrain GP as well, of course. So the Formula One season is back this weekend. But in the meantime, we've got this brilliant action to bring to you. And like I say, the top 10 are the only point-scoring drivers on the grid this evening. So that position that Gabriel Lafreniere is in at the moment, the final points-paying position, is like gold dust. And like you say, there's going to be a few people, Steve Hinden, Yannick Valenduk, all of those who have had contrasting seasons, maybe not been as high up as we had in other areas of the season. But yeah, there's a couple of people outside that top 10 who are going to be very much looking for some points to round off their season.
Yeah, and look at this, you've got Rocket Esports on one side of the grid, Zancho Sim Sport on the other. These guys are going to be throwing absolutely everything at each other when they run down to Redgate for the first time.
Absolutely, and you can see Al Buncombe leading them round. Ross McGregor slightly ahead of him at the moment, so we're looking to get the jump off the start. We're going to be going green any second as we go onto the Wheatcroft straight down towards Redgate, just waiting for the green light. You see all 19 cars, and there it is. It's green, green, green. Ross McGregor slightly ahead of Al Buncombe off the start there. Jenson Button sitting right close in behind. You've got John Monroe just behind the Zancho teammate as well, but it's all clean, looking like we're going into Redgate at the moment. Jenson Button up the inside of John Monroe. Al Buncombe manages to retain his lead. I'm looking back, Tim, and I'm looking like I can't see anyone off at the moment. Couple of cars going side by side down through the Crane curves for the first time into the old hairpin. It's a beautiful sight seeing all these Caymans going down the Crane curves for the first time. As you can see, a couple of the mid-pack getting together is Gabriel Lafreniere. I think it's going very sideways, and collects Yannick Valenduk as well, and that is an unfortunate race. It's Mark Raddenbury and one of the PSR guys as well getting caught up, and that was I was about to say we had a clean getaway there, Tim, but unfortunately it looked like Gabriel Lafreniere has caught a little bit of a tank slapper and taken a couple of guys out with him, which is a shame.
You got to think that the last time these guys were in the car was obviously qualifying, and they could have been on a different setup, but obviously they now loaded the car with enough fuel to get them through a 1 hour race, and running through a corner like the old hairpin. Car's so loaded up onto that left-hand side, it really is a sticking point for so many drivers. Even the best get caught out there, but as they're battling behind, it looks like Ross McGregor is managing to hold off Jenson Button. But yeah, such a shame to see a few drivers there involved in that incident. Hopefully they can get back on track and continue racing this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that, Gabriel Lafreniere and Mark Raddenbury, the two most heavily impacted. They're back down towards the back of the grid at the moment, so hopefully they will be able to get back into the swing of things and back up to the grid. You can see Denise Pope, a big winner off of the start. She's got herself up into 12th. You've got Steve Hinden's gone up a couple of places. Matt Atkins up to 14th as well, so doing a fantastic job at the start. But Jenson Button is in that awkward position, isn't he, Tim, where he probably wants to be fighting and trying to get past Ross McGregor, but he's got a very fast driver in the form of John Monroe sat right behind him, and you saw him going through the Melbourne loop there. It looked like Jenson was trying to make the move around the outside, which is, to be honest, never really going to work, is it? But he had to be very careful from John behind him as well.
Yeah, and we've heard from these drivers about how they can use up the tyres, or they can find themselves struggling with the car in the latter stages as we cut to a replay, which will be the incident at the start. This is Lafreniere on the outside there of Dean Allen, and actually just runs out wide and drops it on the curb on the exit. Does a good job of saving it one way, but the car's just penduluming at that point, and it spears across the track, collects Yannick Valenduk, and then off into the barrier. And it looked like Mark Raddenbury was just caught out in some of the kerfuffle that followed. But yeah, like you say, David, okay, yes, Button wants to make the move, but as McGregor actually looks like he's challenging Buncombe in front, looking to the inside, or perhaps just defending. Look, this top five are really locked together, and every single time that someone goes for a move like that, they're not as quick as they can be through that corner. Obviously, they're not running the optimal line, and that just backs everyone up a little bit. And as you can see, McGregor's now backing into Button, who's shuffling backwards a little bit into Monroe, who's brought Mitchell right into the game. And if this continues, and that train of cars you can see behind that's just exited Gollards will be looking to get involved shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you've effectively got two trains. You've got the Al Buncombe train and the Jack Noller train. Almost just got Oscar Sandberg sitting in close behind as they go through Redgate onto lap number 3 and down through the Craner curves. It's an amazing camera angle, this. And going back to what you mentioned, Tim, about Mark, I think, you're right. He was just a passenger, unfortunately. He managed to just about avoid Oscar Sandberg, going sideways through the old hairpin. He's going to come back on. He's not going to get collected, it doesn't look like. He's very, very close, but he's managed to keep it clean and managed to rejoin safely, which is not what we saw a moment ago. But yeah, just going back to Mark Raddenbury, like I say, just got caught up in an incident that really wasn't his fault. It's a bit of a shame. You see even Steve Hinden getting a little bit sideways. It's almost like they've turned the traction control off on these cars and they're putting the foot down through the floor of these Porsche Cayman GT4s and getting tank slappers all over the place at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like that was Belanger just going wide there on the exit of Coppice as well. So a slightly messy start further down the order, but that's allowing Hinden as it looks like Clements going up the inside, I think, and that's really struggled through there, and he's gone all the way through the S's and rejoins, but he's going to drop behind Denise Pope and one of the other EGT challenge cars. I think that is Belanger there. So yeah, wow. I mean, these guys are exchanging positions, but it's not through racing at the moment. It seems to be the last of the survivors really that is going to take one of the positions away.
Yeah, absolutely. A war of attrition. If ever you see one, Steve Hinden nearly catches the back end of Oscar Sandberg there. It's still as you were in the top 5. So it's still Buncombe leads McGregor, leads Button, leads Munro, leads Mitchell, Jack Noller and John Clements a little bit further behind. And then you've got this train of Oscar Sandberg, Steve Hinden, Denise Pope, David Bellinger and Dean Allen. Unfortunately, Tim Weller has retired to the pits. I think he might have been caught up. I wonder if it was Tim who actually went into the back of Mark Raddenbury. I know it was one of the podium sim racing cars, didn't quite catch exactly which one it was. As you see Steve getting a little sideways through the old hairpin. Oscar manages to keep it clean, but Steve's got a great run out of there as he's coming up towards McLean's. He's got a fantastic run coming out of that corner. He's maybe going to look for a move. It's not the easiest position to overtake, and as a result sits behind. But Steve's looking very racy, and Oscar's looks a little bit hot under the collar at the moment, doesn't he, Tim?
Yeah, he looks like he's a little bit on the back foot following that incident on the previous lap, and I wonder if he's now, obviously next time by through the old hairpin, a little bit more cautious just to make sure he gets through there cleanly, and that allowed Hinden that run on the way up to McLean's. But just through the racing line, Sandberg able to kind of naturally defend his position as behind. As Denise Pope runs on, I think she was maybe tagged a little bit behind by one of the EGT cars and running down towards the Melbourne hairpin. That's Dean Allen looking for a way up the inside. They're nearly 3 wide into this corner. It's all going to close down at the apex, but Denise holding true through the middle and is able to get out of the corner cleanly. She's going to be on the inside into Goddard's and actually has managed to hold that position. So excellent driving from her.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, she's shifted Bellinger and I think it's Dean Allen back into it. She's gone wide at Goddard's and a little bit of contact there, and it 3 into 1 isn't going to go. You'd think it was wide enough to fit all 3 of them down there, but I think it's just a case of not able to see each other in close contact between them, and as a result, unfortunately, Denise has been the one who's been caught unaware and shifted out and dropped down a couple of positions. But yeah, I think, like I say, going back to the bit through the S's, I wasn't sure whether she got tangled up with Dean Allen or whether she was just taking avoiding action because she missed the apex entirely. But it did look like Bellinger was coming up the inside. So interested to see what happened there. But you see Steve Hinden up the inside of the picture in the top corner going up to McLean's, doesn't manage to get alongside Oscar Sandberg enough to force the move. It looks like these 4 at the front have dropped off Regan Mitchell behind, so he's now kind of dropping back towards Jack Noller to an extent. But Steve Hinton all over the back of Oscar Sandberg, forcing the move is probably the understatement of the century. What he's doing at the moment.
I was going to say, but he's aware of where he's quicker. You know, he really closes that gap on the way into the old hairpin and on the exit. And actually, Hinden goes to the inside through the S's, cuts across the grass slightly, the little bit of contact and a hit check with Oscar Sandberg, but they both live to fight another day. But that's showing that Hinden really wants to get past, and I think his best opportunity is going to come on the run up to McLean's. He closes that gap to Sandberg through the old hairpin. He just needs to set his run up out of there as cleanly as possible, carry the speed up the hill towards the right-hander, and hopefully he can get the move done. But speaking of trying to get the move done, it looks like Ross McGregor's starting to look at the back of Buncombe. I'm wondering if he can get past because Button is in behind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not really the kind of sandwich you want to be stuck in, is it? You've got Al Buncombe in front and Jensen Button behind. So it's probably not the most comfortable place Ross McGregor's ever been. And you see Gabriel Lafreniere getting a little bit up in behind Matt Atkins as they come onto the start-finish straight going down towards Redgate. He's got the inside line, so I'm sure he'll be looking to make the move. And Matt gives him a bit of space. Good race in there. He's going to hold on to it around the outside. That's good work from Matt, but unfortunately he doesn't keep the car pinned around through the exit, and unfortunately loses that position. But yeah, Ross is in that, I said it before, I'll say it again, he's in that difficult position where he's probably trying to turn the screw on Al Buncombe ahead of him, but he's just got to be so careful of Jensen Button, who's really not that far behind. And now they're starting to drop John Munro as well, and as you can see, Tim, in the background, Jack Noller right on the back of Regan Mitchell. So a differing strategy from both of those is Jack Noller seems to be getting himself a bit more into the race as we speak, whereas Regan Mitchell seems to be doing quite the opposite.
Yeah, I'm having a look at the timing screen, so I wonder whether Regan Mitchell made a mistake on that previous couple of laps because, well, especially on the last lap, he was the best part of a second slower than Noller. So that gap really has closed. So I don't want to say that Mitchell just isn't on pace. I think there must have been a mistake, and we've seen a handful of mistakes already from these drivers. You know, they're pushing so hard, and so many of the corners here at Donington a technical, but also you kind of just wing it and hope. The old hairpin, you don't know if the car's settled on the way in through the Craner curves and as you turn right, and you don't know if the curb's going to treat you nicely on the exit, if you're going to clip a little bit of grass and maybe find yourself with a tank slapper on. So, these guys are really pushing hard, whether they're fighting for the win, like we're seeing here. Ross McGregor really trying to do his best to keep on the back of Buncombe because Button's in behind, or whether they're battling down the order, like you can see the picture in picture. I think that's Mark Roundenbury and Nathan Gibson going at it for the final spot on the grid. So on the standing. So yeah, these guys are really giving it everything. And just like that, David, 10 minutes has gone. We've got another 49 and a bit to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. If the next 49 is like the first 10, we're certainly going to be in for a brilliant finish to this race and a finish to this incredible season. And hopefully, I know Steve's been talking about it, but hopefully we'll get another season as well. Whether that's in the GT4s or in something else remains to be seen. But if it's going to be anything like this season, it's going to be full of action. As you can see, the top three just going hell for leather through the S's. It is one of those tracks, isn't it, Tim, where, like you said before, you need to hit every corner with the utmost aggression and confidence. It's a real old school kind of track, and one where, like you say, it can be hit a corner in just the slightest wrong way and you can really offset the car. But if you're confident around here, you can gain so much time. As you see the splitter cam, courtesy of broadcast director Steve Proudly on Jensen Button, who's apparently showing between third and fourth, but we know he's in third. On the timing tower, he's getting closer and then further away as they go into the braking zones and out of the exits of the corners between him and Ross McGregor, who's very, very close on the back of Al Buncombe and will be looking to make the move. He's looking for 2 wins in 2, of course, after he won last time out of Snetterton.
Yeah, look at Button now. This is such a good shot. You can see how this track undulates and the camber changes on the road, on the run down through the Craners and into the old hairpin. And look, you can see the angle, the body roll in these Caymans. Yeah, they're race cars, they're GT4 cars, but at the end of the day, they're a road car to some extent. There are many crossover features between a car you might drive down to the local shops, but here through McLean's, you can see the car again, that left side just dipping down as the car's really loaded through there. And it looks like these guys are pretty evenly matched, and I say that with a slight wry smile on my face because they haven't been separated by more than a few tenths the entirety of this event so far. But I think just by not making any lunges or rash decisions, they're enabling themselves to gap Munro slightly. Although we did see Jensen Button a little bit squirmy on the exit of Coppice, and that has just given McGregor now a little bit more breathing space. But I'm pretty sure that in a few corners' time they would have closed back up again, as McGregor does get a great run out of the Melbourne hairpin, and he might be looking to the inside on the run up to Goddard's, but not the opportunity maybe to make a pass. But I've got the feeling now, David, it's a matter of when, not if, Ross McGregor tries to make a move on Alex Buncombe, and if drama kicks off, then Button and Munro are best placed to benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to have to tell a former Formula One world champion twice to go and take a position, are you? Let's be completely honest. And it's very sensible driving for all of them. As Nathan Gibson, rather, I keep calling him Noel, has got a drive through, presumably for track limits. It's not necessarily the easiest one to adhere to track limits here, especially when you're going through the S's around towards the back end of the track, because if you do get a little bit too much curb, it can give you that track limit warning. So he's going to have to come into the pits and serve that penalty within the next 3 laps. But yeah, it's a very sensible race from these 4, or these 3 or 4 at the front for the moment. Nothing too naughty, no early sends, no dive bombs up the inside into some heavy braking zones. And as a result, like you said, Tim, they are starting to get John Munro a bit. Regan Mitchell's got Jack Noller for close company, as we see on the timing charts. Steve Hinden's dropped himself down a couple of positions. He's now sitting down in 12th, and that's promoted Yannick Valenduk into the points, and Denise Pope continuing her rise up the charts up into 11th. So she, despite again having not the most positive of championships, you now see that drive-through penalty for Nathan Gibson has now been upgraded to a stop-go, because he's probably been speeding in the pit lane, which is the straw that broke the camel's back potentially. Yeah. But Denise is looking very racy this evening, and I know she's been at Donington a few times this weekend. It certainly seems to be a track that's suiting her at the moment.
Yeah, it's nice to see that, isn't it? That's what we're saying with this slightly reduced grid. It's really presented an opportunity for these drivers who have been battling for the lower positions to really make a standout performance, and bag themselves championship points this evening. So it's great to see, but it's not going to be easy for Denise, and it's not going to be easy for anyone to bag points this evening, because as you can see, Denise is locked in battle with the recovering Steve Hindon, who looks like he made a mistake on the previous lap, and they're side by side with Dean Allen on the run into Redgate. I mean, look at these guys. They are pushing very hard. Yannick Valenduk just disappearing out of shot in the grey and orange Sim Racing Hub International car is currently holding on to that final point position in 10th. And as Hindon gets all kinds of wiggly down through the Craner curves and through the old hairpin, he manages to hold on to it. But cutting back towards the front here, Ross McGregor and Button look to have closed up on the back of Buncombe, if you can even say that, considering how close they've been for the previous 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Going through the S's line astern still. It's still the Zancho Esports car in the Rocket Esports sandwich at the moment, but it looks like it's going to be something that might change over the next couple of laps. Like you say, it's getting closer and closer. This is, of course, meaning that John Monroe is managing to stick with them, and I'm sure he'll be well on the back of this trio if there were to be any form of overtakes being attempted over the next couple of corners. Oscar Sandberg looks like he's very close on the back of John Clements, and then they've got David Bellinger close for company in the picture in the corner of the screen as they go through the Melbourne Loop. But we're going to continue to focus on this battle as they go on to lap number 11. That's Nathan Gibson, who looks like he's going to be retiring from this race. He doesn't look like he's serving that penalty. He seems to have just parked up the car, which is probably something I would have done, in all fairness, if I'd got a drive through and then been slapped to the stop go penalty as well. That's normally the straw that breaks the camel's back for me as well. So interesting to see he's electing to do that, it seems. But this battle at the front, Tim, like you said, it's surely, as we see Ross McGregor going a little bit wide through the old hairpin, surely it's going to be a case of, surely it can't finish in the order it is now, surely.
Well, if it does, it will. I'm pretty sure it will have gone through a few changes before it settles back in that order. But it's like you turn on the kettle, and just waiting for it to boil over this evening. John Clements actually just seen on the timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen picking up a drive-through penalty. So that's going to drop him outside of the top 10 for sure in the order at the moment. So he might have to battle back through into the points positions, but that's going to hand another kind of position to that lower order, that battle that we saw have been looking at earlier. So Valenduk, Pope, Hinton and Allen are going to have another position to fight for, as we see McGregor going to the inside again into the Melbourne Loop. He's just able to run that line, I think. He knows it doesn't cost him too much time in the grand scheme of things, but also it's just enabling him to stop Button doing something adventurous into there and making a move that seems to come out of nowhere, really catching McGregor out of the blue. So I think that's a strategic choice from the number 3 Zancho SimSport driver to just run slightly offline, close the door a little bit. But as we saw on the previous lap, actually, McGregor did run wide on the exit of the old hairpin. So we are seeing that these guys are pushing. They are toying with track limits, and I've got the feeling that it's going to bite one of them soon. Because that's just the nature of it. You just push that a little bit too hard on that one occasion and the coin toss doesn't go your way and you find yourself off in the grass. But it's really bubbling up here into a nice battle, both for the win overall and, of course, the points positions all the way down to 10th place.
Yeah, absolutely. You see John Clements has served his drive-through penalty. He's back down into 13th place. We saw all of that sea of cars fighting for the points. So Valenduk, Pope, Allen, and Hindon all going past. He was in the pit in the pit lane. But you see Jenson Button coming out of Coppice there, all over the grass in the picture-in-picture. That's dropped him back a little bit, and this could be the chance for Ross McGregor to make his move. He gets a clean run through the S. It's not really close enough to Al Buncombe to make a move, and it's one of the better chances he's had all race. If he could have just been a little bit closer to the current race leader, didn't necessarily have the pressure of Jenson Button sitting in behind and potentially pouncing on any mistake that Ross would have made, but unfortunately not close enough to make that move at this point, so you have to wait a little bit longer, and that's meant that Jenson Button can now get back into the clutches of Ross. But at the moment, Steve Hindon looking at the inside into the Melbourne Loop on Dean Allen. He's going to go down the inside. He's got Denise Pope to worry about on the apex as well, but he manages to make the move, gets the Porsche Cayman stopped, and that's a lovely move in the end. He's just managed to get himself up the inside, Tim, slam on the anchors, and then effectively just close the door on the exit. It's a textbook move through that hairpin, isn't it?
Yeah, textbook move, but also nice and clean. That's what we like to see. These guys, after a slightly messy opening kind of stands of that first 10 minutes, it's nice to see them now just knuckling down and really starting to make those moves that are going to see them set up a good race result for them. So it's nice to see Steve finding his pace again. He has got good speed at Donington. We have seen some nice pace from him, particularly in qualifying. It's good to see these guys now starting to have a nice clean battle. Textbook indeed. And I wonder whether McGregor's going to be able to do a textbook move, or whether he's going to have to just not really send it, but just pull something out of the bag and catch Buncombe off guard, because at the moment Alex Buncombe has more in common with a sponge than anything else, the way he's absorbing pressure. But Steve Hindon actually running wide on the exit of McLean's and losing the position to Dean Allen that he fought so hard to get the 11th place. He now drops back to 12th. So, yeah, Buncombe's just absorbing this pressure with no issue at the moment. It's really McGregor that I think is having to just stretch himself to not keep on the back of the number 23, but just to challenge and start causing Buncombe a headache. So let's see how this one progresses. And I'm sure with Button dropping off slightly, it's just going to enable them a chance to set up a move if it comes, because McGregor's not going to have to be looking around him and looking in the rear mirror for the number 22 Rocket Esports car. He's going to be crosshairs focused on the car in front. So as we're nearing halfway, it's not now or never, but McGregor's going to have to start thinking about when he gets that move done.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those where it's certainly going towards his side of the coin to actually have that, to try and make that move. You see Steve Hindon trying to get at the inside of Denise Pope, coming out of Redgate down towards the Crane of Curves. Not somewhere you really want to be running too wide, but Steve manages to get the move done before that second apex, that fast right-hander down the hill towards the old hairpin. And just looking at the timings on the last lap, I'm seeing that Al Buncombe a 1:34.9, Ross McGregor a 1:34.8, Jenson Button with a 1:35.1. So that gap is certainly starting to extend from Ross McGregor back to Jenson Button. And going back to what you said, Tim, it's going to give Ross that, like I say, that little bit of breathing room behind that he really needs to maybe attempt a move that he wouldn't have done with Jenson Button in that Rocket Esports Porsche Cayman, sat very close in behind him. So, and yeah, going back to what you said, he is probably going to have to try and do something that he wouldn't normally do, because he's trying all the normal moves you'd expect to see them doing. You're going into the Melbourne Loop, you've got a move at Goddard's that might be on. If you can get a run down through the Crane of Curves, you can have a look at the old hairpin. But there's other moves that could be done as well. So he's maybe going to have to think outside the box a little bit. But he has got that a second and a half or so back to JB that is going to give him almost the license to be a little bit more risky with his overtake.
Yeah, definitely. And the way he was... he was kind of half defending from Button early on, and that was costing him time through the Melbourne Loop. And then he would fight for the rest of the lap to catch back up to Buncombe, only to semi-defend into the Melbourne Loop and lose all that time again. But now he's not having to do that. He can concentrate on his line through there and keep that time in the bag, as we get a fantastic shot from the right rear of Al Buncombe's 23 Team Rocket Esports. Really interesting camera angle brought to you from Steve Proudley at SimSport Solutions. You can see just how much the suspension is oscillating around this bumpy Donington Park circuit, but you also get a great idea as to how McGregor closes up in the braking zones and gets ever larger behind him, actually getting a little bit wiggly through the S's there and losing some time to Buncombe. In fact, Buncombe last time around in this final sector setting the purple time, so the best of anyone through this final third of the lap. So that seems to be where he's generating the lap time. But yeah, McGregor now really he's got to start thinking, okay, am I actually going to be able to make this move now? Do I have the pace really to get by? He's kind of locked in between a rock and a hard place really in trying to make something happen and costing him the time. But like you say, that gap that was nearly 2 seconds at one point to Buttons, now coming down to a second. So that safety net of margin behind him is slowly being chipped away at by the Rocket Esports driver. So time's running out, and I say that with 35 and 3/4 minutes remaining. But let's see what can happen. As we see Hindon very squirrely on the exit of Goddard's, and as he move over to the left-hand side, I don't know how he managed to hold that. All kinds of crossed up on the exit of the final corner, but Hindon living to fight another day, and these two cars in front are points position. So let's see if he can push on and bag himself some scores tonight.
Absolutely. You see Dean Allen looking up the inside down the crane of curves on Yannick Valenduc in a 301 machine. Elects to fight another day, but gets a good run, it looks like, out of the old hairpin, up the run towards McLean's what would normally be Starkey's bridge, but it's not there for whatever reason. So we'll ignore that, but going up towards McLean's doesn't quite manage to have the distance between them to make a move, and that just gives Steve Hindon the chance to close up. And of course, we can't discount Denise Pope, who's only about half a second or so, maybe a little bit more off the back of this train. So any comings together between any of these guys, any moves that come a little bit sour, anything like that, as you can see, Yannick Valenduc gets a little bit slow out of the at Coppice rather onto the back straight, and is all of a sudden swarmed by a red and a blue Porsche Cayman. As you can see them going through the S's, Dean Allen manages to hold on to 10th place, and that gives Yannick that little bit of breathing room that he needs. But Steve's not done yet. He wants that 10th position, and Denise Pope now on the back of these two as well. Steve just checking back across and nearly collecting Denise in the braking zone, but manages to stay away for now. All of this is giving Yannick Valenduc what was a very squirmy time on about half a lap ago. He's now managed to, I say that, if they go into Goddard's, it all kind of closes up again, but it's giving him that tiny little bit of breathing room he needs, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, just about. It's okay, these guys are fighting between themselves. That's going to give me at least 2 or 3 more corners before they sort themselves out and start trying to get back past me. But yeah, Valenduc is, I feel like he's going to potentially become the cork in the bottle here. Dean Allen, I think, is quick enough to be further up the order. Obviously, podium finisher last time out at Snetterton. So he did fairly lucked into it with some of the retirements around him. And he set the target of 12th place or better. And at the moment, Allen is holding true to that. So let's see if he can keep inside the top 10, or at least finish the season on a high with his target of 12th place. But Hindon's looking quick as well. But I think those mistakes are just costing him time. Meanwhile, it looked like McGregor is now really trying to put the pressure on Bunkum.
Yeah, absolutely. Button and Bunkum, easy mistake to be made, to be fair. Both sound similar enough. As Dean Allen, the picture-in-picture, very close to Yannick Valenduc through the S's. And I think, yeah, you're right. If Dean can get past Yannick and keep that move stuck as he goes down in towards the Melbourne Loop, it is going to be one of those where I think he is going to try and almost scarper off into the distance. Next up the road is David Bellinger, who's closely behind Oscar Sandberg. We saw those two coming together at Snetterton last week. But Ross McGregor so close down through the crane of curves behind Al Bunkum. He's going to look I thought he was looking to go down the inside into the old hairpin, but elects to not do that. Stays the outside. Jenson Button getting very wide on the exit of the old hairpin, and Al Bunkum leaving the door open a little bit, coming up towards McLean's. Ross McGregor going around the outside. He's not going to make that move done, surely. But again, just sits in behind, but he's as close as he ever has been. He's got just under a second back to Jenson Button, so he's got enough time to make that move. And he's very, very close on the back. He's almost pushing Al Bunkum through Coppice. He's got the outside line going down the Starkey straight down towards the S's. It's going to be a very, very confident and aggressive move if he manages to get this done. Again, just sits in behind and waits a little bit longer. Maybe he gets a better run out of the S's. It looks like he does. He's closing up on Al Bunkum. Could this be the chance where he manages to make the move down into the Melbourne Loop? Again, that's given Jenson Button a chance, Tim, to close up on the back of them. So as soon as this happens, it just goes back to square one, and they back into line of stern again.
Yeah, definitely. And it's unfortunate for Jenson, who had set a purple lap time a couple of laps ago, and then he made that mistake at the old hairpin. But then through these two going side by side, that's brought him back into the fight. As we see on the left-hand side of the screen, John Munro has been handed a drive-through, and he serves that immediately at the back of shot, pulling into pit lane on the exit of Goddard's, not taking the back door into the pit lane that some people have been caught out for in the real world. But yes, a really exciting battle at the front. This is hotting up, and with Munro getting that penalty, the gap's going to be sizable back to Mitchell. It's now, well, the best part of 8 seconds, really, back to the 4th placed SimSport Racing driver. So it's setting up to be a 3-way fight for this one. and throw the names up in the air and catch one of them, and you stand a good chance of that being a winner.
Absolutely, yeah. You couldn't tell which one it's going to be at the moment. I think you're going to have another 30 minutes there or thereabouts to trying to figure out who it is. We see in the picture down in the bottom corner. I think that's Steve Hinden again going off to the side of the track. John Clements now with the drive-through, so he's the latest man to be caught susceptible to to track limits rather. And we'll then have to dive into the bits. Fortunately, though, it's not necessarily the worst pit lane in the world to get a drive-through penalty because it's not really the longest one. And obviously, when they come out of Goddard's and you literally just drop straight in, you're not necessarily losing as much time as you would on the Nurburgring, for example, that we were at for round 2, or Imola, where the cars are going so much faster in comparison. So it does mean that John Monroe's only actually dropped back down to 8th. It's promoted Jack Noller, Sandberg, and Bellinger up. As you see, John Clements is serving his drive-through as well. But these three at the moment, you can't separate them by any stretch of the imagination, and it's very, very sensible driving from them. If I had to explain what it was, it's very sensible, very calculated. No one's making any silly moves. I mentioned it once, I mentioned it again, but it's very interesting to watch. It's almost like a game of chess. We don't know who's going to make the move and when it's going to be, but you can guarantee, Tim, that someone is going to make one, and chances are it's going to stick because it looks like they've been calculating this for the first half of this race.
It's very professional, isn't it? And that's a good word to describe maybe two professional drivers and a professional sim racer, isn't it? So I think these guys have got it sorted. But yeah, I think I'm starting to wonder now whether it's going to be who makes that one unforced error that's going to decide this one. It's going to be that, or I wonder whether it's going to be some outside assistance. These guys are lapping at a very strong pace, comfortably the quickest people out on track this evening, and I wonder if, as you look up towards the S's, you can see one of the EGT cars going through that chicane, Alan Leon, I believe, in the 777. So I wonder if traffic might play into things, and that might be all it takes. But actually, McGregor gets a great run out of the S's and goes to the outside of Alex Buncombe as they come into the hairpin right-hander. McGregor not able to get the move done, but attempts to challenge around the outside, go the long way round, and that really is another opportunity gone amiss. And but it's just so tricky. McGregor, is he going to have to force the issue, or is he going to have to just pressure? Because clearly pressure isn't working in his favour. Maybe he's just going to have to send it and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And then do you risk taking out someone of the calibre of Al Buncombe or anything like that? You've also got obviously Jenson Button sat right in your toe as well. I know Ross McGregor knows those two well. So he's exercising a certain amount of restraint, I'd imagine. You obviously don't want to go taking off some of your teammates. Of course, the Zancho and Rocket Sport esports guys affiliated to an extent, but he's sitting in the best position possible. In fact, actually, he's probably in the second best position possible, because you would argue that despite the fact that Al Buncombe is in first, that first position is under some significant pressure at the moment. Jenson Button, you'd probably say, is in pole position for it, because if either of those two come together, he just drives around, avoids them as he needs to, and then gets the move and wins the race. But see, Steve Hinden again. Steve Hinden is not having the most fun at times at the moment. Gets very, very screwy coming out of Redgate, and that gives Dean Allen the chance to move up into 10th in that final points-paying position. Denise Pope just slightly being gapped behind them, but she'll still be sat there wondering if there's potentially some points on offer. We can see John Clements looks to have retired from the race. He's a couple of laps back now after that drive-through, so he looks like he's called it a day, unfortunately. So we are down to just the 16 running cars. It's very much a race of attrition. But you see in the corner, Ross McGregor still so close behind Al Buncombe. And Tim, you've mentioned it before, it's very, very much a matter of time before Alan Leon gets into this. It's going to be very interesting. You see, I think it's Matt Atkins in the background as well, coming down in towards Redgate. It's going to be very interesting to see how these guys manage to circumnavigate these back markers. And just as interestingly is all Ross McGregor showing Al Buncombe the eyes down the inside, maybe trying to offsettle him, get him offline. Coming out of the corner as Alan Leon kicks up some dust, and that's not going to help either of these guys. But it's just as much a case of how are these guys going to get round the back markers, as much as what are the back markers going to do when these front runners get up to them.
Yeah, and it's about to play out in these next few corners. Very wide. Oh, nearly contact between Leon and Buncombe. That was very close. You could barely see the space between them. Wow, that was nearly it. That was nearly Buncombe's race, I dare to say. But wow, they managed to get through that one. I don't quite believe that they did. That was very close on the exit of the old hairpin where we've seen so much incident so far this evening. I wonder whether, Buncombe can start to think, right, can I use these cars as a pick? Obviously the traffic's not coming through as closely as, as often as we see in multi-class endurance racing. But I wonder if he's starting to think, okay, where can I use Atkins to get past the lap car, but also cost McGregor some time and cost Button some time getting stuck in that little train. So yeah, I'm interested to see what Buncombe's strategy is here. Crucially, David, as well, I've just done some very basic maths, but if they finish as they are at the moment, Ross McGregor will be beaten into that second place. So Alex Buncombe, obviously with pole position and currently winning the race, would move on to 62 points. McGregor in second would be taking third place in the title standings with 60 points. And Button, who currently, I believe, has the fastest lap of the race, would stay in, would be dropped to fourth position on 54 points. So it's going to be a little reshuffle in the championship standings, should it stay the same, but I doubt it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Winner takes all is probably the best way you could explain that. And it was very much a heart and mouth moment as they went past Alan Leon before. And like you say, they're coming up towards the back of Matt Atkins in the average sim racer Cayman. And you see John Clements disappearing from the service. He's had enough. He's disappeared off after having, I think he had a couple of drive-through penalties in the end, to be fair. So I can again understand some of the frustration there. It's one of those tracks, isn't it? Like we say, you need to be aggressive, but you also need to be very aware of your surroundings, and they're coming up to Matt at one of the more difficult areas. They're not going to necessarily get him through the S's. There's not going to be too much of an issue there, but they're going to be catching him as they come into the Melbourne Loop. We'll see him probably appear on camera in just a second. As you see, it just goes to the inside into the Melbourne Loop, and Ross McGregor, oh my word, looked like he just missed his braking point ever so slightly there and was very, very close to the back of Al Buncombe again. 2 incidents nearly in two laps for Al. He's going to be counting his blessings at the moment. The fact he's still actually on this, he's on the black stuff, pointing the right way. But that's another one circumnavigated. Next one up the road is Mark Raddenbury. He's a little bit further ahead, so there's not necessarily going to be too much for them to worry about for the time being. Just checking on pit. Well, yeah, so you can see they're just going through Redgate. Mark Raddenbury's just come out of the old hairpin, so a fair bit of time for them to battle between themselves. But it is literally, look, if you win this race, you get the second place in the championship. It's as simple as that, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? And Matt Atkins really did the best thing you can do as a back marker, which is get off the racing line and just back out of it and just say, look, I don't want to play a part in this. I don't want to be involved. But I start to wonder whether McGregor was desperate to get past the slowing Atkins and maybe thought, right, I need to send it in here to make sure I clear the number 21 average sim racer Cayman. And in doing that, just ran that little bit further on into the corner, understeered through the apex, and that so very nearly opened the door to Jenson Button. So it's now, whereas we saw that license for aggression from McGregor when there was that gap back to Button. Now, all three of them together, if McGregor goes for it, he's got to get it done, because as he runs deep again into the Melbourne hairpin, allowing Button to close up, yeah, he's got to get it done. There's no half chances anymore now with 22 minutes to go. When he goes for it, he's got to go for it, and he's got to hope that the damn thing sticks, because if him and Buncombe have it coming together, Button's definitely going to pounce on the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to what you said about the championship points, Tim, if I'm not mistaken, if my maths is correct, which is even less likely than yours, if there is 7 points between first and second, because it's 25 to 18, and there's 6 points separating Ross McGregor and Jenson Button, who are second and fourth. So yeah, like you say, it is literally, you win this race and chances are you've won the championship. Of course, with Ross McGregor and Jenson Button, if it is a case of Jenson, if he loses that fastest lap bonus, then obviously Ross could get it, and it will kind of throw into the mix in terms of count back and stuff. And that's something to be figured out another day, but it certainly adds an element of intrigue to this if there wasn't one already. Jack Noller, of course, Regan Mitchell, rather, he's sitting in fourth. He's about 10.5 seconds back at the moment. He's got a little bit of a gap back to Jack Noller, so he's looking pretty comfortable in there at the moment. Not managed to do too much in terms of improving on his rather impressive qualifying. You just see one of the back markers in the background. I was about to say it's Regan Mitchell, but I don't believe it is. And Jack Noller in 5th, Oscar Sandberg in 6th place. He's got John Monroe fairly close for company and David Bellinger just in behind them as well. And then it's Yannick Valenduc and Steve Hinden currently rounding out those points paying positions. But of course, Dean Allen and Denise Pope still not too far adrift. So any mistakes from Steve, and let's face it, Tim, unfortunately, we have seen quite a few from him this evening. And a second points position in a row to round out the season is certainly in jeopardy if he manages to make a couple more of those mistakes that he has done already.
Yeah, I think that just shows how hard he's pushing. As Button dives for pit lane, so I wonder whether he's picked up a puncture or something like that. We have heard from the drivers that they have been pushing the tyres to the limit in this season, and especially at a track like Donington where you can use all of the curb and then some. And in fact, it looks like Button's dropped out, so fingers crossed he wasn't double booked again. That would really be diary disaster for Jenson Button if he's done that. But wow, I think that's looks like the way he's dropped out immediately that something's happened out of Jenson's control there. So that's a shame to see, because it was really bubbling up into a battle that was going to go right down to the wire. But that's going to elevate Regan Mitchell to 3rd. So a really impressive finish for him. Okay, yeah, 4th place would have been brilliant, matching 4th place last time out at Snetterton. But it's going to be interesting now. Sorry, 5th place. It's going to be interesting now to see if Jack Noller can close that gap. 3 seconds, and they've been fairly matched on lap time. But I wonder if the dangling carrot now is a podium finish, and Jack Noller's going to start his act together and seeing what he can do to close up to Mitchell. And we have seen how quick the 36 MSL Motorsports Cayman has been in the hands of Noller over the last 2 rounds. So I wouldn't put it past him. And in fact, he's just taken a sizable chunk, 4/10 out Mitchell on the previous run through the sectors. So let's see. I'll keep my eye on that gap, David. Let's see if Noller can close up, make it a fight for 3rd, just as it is a fight for 1st. And on your screen at the moment, a fight for 5th.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the encouragement you need, knowing that a former Formula One world champion has disappeared out of this race, unfortunately. And if he doesn't have one already, I'm sure he'll be looking for a PA to maybe try and juggle those appointments if it is a double booking, like I believe we had last week. And Jensen,
have you got your CV ready?
I was going to say, Jensen, if you're listening, I can manage Outlook calendar very nicely. So if you are interested, I'm sure we can sort something out. But a real shame, all joking aside, that he's dropped out of this one. Of course, like we say, lost him at Snetterton last week. He was in the race winning position. Obviously, had a chance of the race win this evening, but that's going to mean it's going to be very much a 2-horse race for that 2nd place in the championship behind Luca Birkin's advantage Buncombe at the moment. And he will be taking it, of course, still winner takes all. But we're focusing on the battle a little bit further back down the grid at the moment. John Monroe getting a good run out of Redgate. He's trying to get alongside Oscar Sandberg to go down into the crane of curves. Goes right, then left, and down into the old hairpin. It's not necessarily a move around the outside he's going to be making, but John managed to get a good run. He got a good run out of this one on the last lap as they head up the hill towards McLean's. He's very close on the back of this Turn 1 Esports car. I wonder if he's going to try and make a move now. Again, just sits in behind for another corner, but it's one of those. I mean, we saw how quick John was. Of course, he's only this far down the grid due to the drive-through penalty he got earlier, but he's certainly turning the screw a little bit on the back of the Turn 1 Esports machine in the form of Oscar Sandberg, and it seems only a matter of time before he does it. And then if he can start to pick up the time, it's still a sizable margin. Of course, he's got to gain more than a second a minute to catch up to Jack Noller behind him, but he can certainly look like he's got the pace to step away and make that 5th place his own.
Yeah, and we've seen, well, Sandberg, he's a tricky customer, isn't he? He's very quick in his own right, but he's got obviously his real-world racing experience. He's a Nurburgring 24-hour class champion, winner, and he's got plenty of experience in the Cayman in the real world. So he certainly knows how to wield this thing and indeed defend a position. So, you know, if Monroe does make a move, it's certainly not going to come with a receipt, and Sandberg's not going to allow him an exchange back. So let's see what happens between these guys, because Monroe will be looking further up the order, like you say, seeing if he can get up towards Noller, if he really gets a move done soon and kicks on hard to get up towards that top 4 position. But Sandberg doing exactly what he needs to do at the moment, which is run his line, run his race, and run his pace, and leave the move up to Monroe to make. But the gap at the front, really, Buncombe and McGregor, is still around half a second, and I nearly shouted down the mic as I saw the gap was less than 2/10 at one point, so I wondered if McGregor was going for something. But yeah, it's just hovering around that half-second mark now. So with over 15 minutes to spare, the drivers are going to start thinking about their tyres, about the fuel, potentially about their track limits warnings. Are they on their last life, really, with the stewards? So it's starting to turn from giving it everything to get the move done to now a little bit more race management. And on that previous time McGregor just able to drop to lose a little bit of time to Bunkum, as we see John Munro going the wrong direction on the exit of the S's. Looks like he's spun and he's going to drop down behind Yannick Valenduk, who's in 8th place. So that's a shame for Munro after battling through, and obviously was on the back of Oscar Sandberg in the 120 turn 1 esports car. So I wonder if there was a coming together there. But yeah, let's see what happens. And with a little bit of time remaining, it's going to be up to McGregor really to push on. And actually, look at the screen, David. We can see he's dropped a little bit further back, and Bunkum's now got that safety net to play with of 7/10 or so.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. And like you say, going back to Munro, it looked like maybe it was just a mistake pushing too hard. Obviously, we saw how close he was on the back of Sandberg, and Ross McGregor, maybe he's done the same. And I was just about to say, I wonder if we might see shades of shades of Schumacher and Damon Hill from, was it 1996? I think it was, at Adelaide, if my memory serves me correctly, and see if Ross McGregor tries to try and send a move at the inside.
That'd be nice and controversial, wouldn't it, David?
Absolutely,
championship.
Take out, in inverted commas, Al Bunkum, and that would give him second in the championship. I don't think he'll do that. I think Ross is far more intelligent and far more reserved and sensible enough not to do that. But it would be certainly something to round off the championship if it did happen. But at the moment, I'm not sure what's happened to him. But yeah, like you say, he's dropped back. He's dropped over a second and a half on the last lap. Majority of what he's lost is in that second set. So we're going to go to replay. It's going to be John Munro. We're going to see what's happened to him as he goes up towards Coppice. Does he take a little bit too much curb? Just tries to get on the power a little bit too early. It's going to be through the S's to see this. And I wonder if he's just going to come in too late or just drop it on the exit down towards the braking zone. And let's see. On the curb on the outside, turns in. The thing's already looking pretty squirrely, and it's in that transition, David. Look how it bites, and wow, off to the left-hand side, and in the barrier goes Munro. So shows you how quickly not only the track, but these Caymans can bite if you find yourself a little bit offline and out of shape. Absolutely, yeah, it was one of those. Like you say, Tim, he just went he was a little bit too greedy on the curb going through that second apex, caught that sausage on the inside. You can see it as Ross McGregor almost does exactly the same. Fortunately, he manages to square it off to an extent, so it doesn't necessarily meet the same end that John did, but that shifted him down the order. Of course, did hit the wall, so might have a bit of damage, but that's certainly not deterring him from getting right on the back of Yannick Valenduk at the moment as they go up towards McLean's. They've got Dean Allen and Steve Hinden in tow, a second or so each behind them. Denise Pope drops a little bit further back from these two, so her chances of points paying position look to be almost dead and buried, apart from if anyone has any comings together, which we've seen a few of over these last couple of races. It seems like the drivers since the last couple of rounds have been a little bit more, dare I say, slapdash or aggressive with their moves, but it certainly made for some brilliant action when they haven't had any major incidents. But John's going to be going through the S. He's going to hopefully make sure he doesn't do the same thing again. Very sideways through that first apex tip. He's very aggressive through there, and we've seen it bite him once. I wonder if he's going to do it again. But going into the Melbourne loop, sends it to the inside of Yannick Valenduk, but just gets it stopped in time. It looked like Yannick shut the door to an extent there, and with all due reason, to be fair to him, he had no reason not to do that. And as a result, John's going to have to sit behind him for another couple of corners, all of which is going to pent up some potential frustration after he found himself backwards a couple of laps ago. Yeah,
and Munro's looking really out of shape through the S's, isn't he? I wonder if it's pushing too hard or whether he's got a tyre that's losing pressure. And when he loads up that part of the car, he's struggling through there. Obviously, a lot of the corners here at Donington Park are right-handers, and it's typically through the left-hand part of the S's that he's struggling. So I wonder if there's something going on there. And really the question mark is, I wonder whether the problem that's affecting Munro is what's affecting McGregor. Obviously, two Zansho SimSport drivers, McGregor losing countless tenths and pretty much a second or so a lap now to Buncombe. So I wonder if they're both fighting a similar tyre issue or fuel issue or whatever it might be. I mean, a couple of laps ago, Buncombe set his personal best fastest lap, and McGregor had no chance to answer. So yeah, interested to see how this one's going to play out, because now it's moved away from McGregor making a move and it's towards Buncombe making a mistake that's going to cost him the victory. As we see, John Munro actually pushing hard there through the S's, and he didn't make a mistake that time. So I wonder what's happened there with him, and if he's managing to alleviate that mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at the timing boards on as they went through lap 31, Tim, I can see that Ross McGregor, subject to all of the time he's lost over the last couple of laps, actually gained half a second on Al Buncombe on the last one. So he's 2.3 back now. As you see John Munro getting a good run out of Goddard. Yannick Valenduc going a little bit wide, catches some of the grass on the curb on the exit. He's going to have the inside line into Redgate, but this is one of those corners where you can, if you're bold enough, you can get a move done around the outside, but John Munro's not going to do it. And it does look like, Tim, it looks like there might be some damage to that Sancho Sim Sport car. But look at the timing chart at the top. You can see Ross McGregor is certainly starting to claw that gap back. He lost a bit of time on the previous couple of laps, but he's certainly not hanging around in gathering that momentum back on his direction. So John Munro goes a little bit wide through the old hairpin, and that gives Dean Allen a chance to get himself up into 8th position. So it's all gone from bad to worse from John Munro ever since that drive-through penalty. He's been stuck behind Oscar Sandberg, obviously got spun himself through the S's, had that little bit of a coming together through there, and then losing another position by, again, it just looks like he's maybe just pushing a little bit too hard, and in that result is making him lose positions hand over fist.
Yeah, definitely. But as you alluded to, David, I was watching the track map as you were talking there, and they had to deal with Mark Roddenberry, so lap traffic, I think, is what's caused that gap change, and Buncombe was able to get through on the exit of the Melbourne hairpin after Roddenberry pulled over. But I think in that exchange of where are you going, are you stopping, are you pulling over, are you letting me through, that's what cost Buncombe a bit of time and has allowed McGregor to take a sizable chunk out of that gap. Now only 1.2 seconds for the race lead inside the final 8.5 minutes. But yeah, Munro is really pushing, but I think he is carrying some sort of issue, because the couple of mistakes here and there look like they've been on the exit of the corner where the car might not be too happy, and not what he expects when he leans on the car. So yeah, let's see if Munro can get his head together, get things sorted for this final 8-minute dash to the line, and see if he can pick off Dean Allen and Yannick Valenduc, who's done a great job this evening to be holding on to that 7th position.
Absolutely, yeah, he's certainly shot at the standings over the last couple of laps. Obviously, a lot of it seems to be courtesy of issues of other drivers, but he's done exactly what you would want someone to do in that position. Not made mistakes himself, kept it clean, and as a result, he's been shooting at the standings. Of course, probably one of the biggest disappointments this evening, and I don't mean that in a bad way, is the fact that Denise Pope obviously had such a good start in the first couple of laps. Obviously, managed to get around the issues that befell Gabriel Lafreniere and Mark Roddenberry on the first couple of laps. You see Dean Allen rather, getting very racy up behind Yannick Valenduc going into the S's. You see John Munro getting a fantastic run out of the S's. Goodness me. That was the fact of Dean Allen getting slightly an unoptimised line, should we call it, out of the S's, and that's going to give John the chance to go up the inside into the Melbourne loop, and that is as easy a move as they come. That was pretty much just set up by two people having completely different lines going through the S's, and John didn't need to be told twice to make that move and went through. But yeah, just going back to Denise, had a fantastic start to the race, and unfortunately he was obviously in the chance of getting a points podium position, but has just fallen back at the wrong time and is now going to need one of these two to potentially come together if she's got a chance of getting some points on this final race of the season.
You can see it just at the back of shot there in the pink and silver Wild Things number 79 car, and I do wonder, okay, she's had a really strong race. I'm sure she'll be happy with 11th place, but now it's going to come down to something happening between this trio, or in fact quartet, with Yannick Valenduc doing his best to try and gap the bunch whilst they're battling. But and I wouldn't be surprised to see a slight coming together with the way they're pushing, and especially with the races that they've had so far. They haven't been far away from instant this evening, but fingers crossed they can keep it clean in this final 6 minutes. We're looking towards the front of the race again, David. McGregor is just managing to take little by little out of that gap to Alex Buncombe, and he is closing up. And I say little by little, he's best part of 0.5 of a second faster on that last lap, but a little bit wide out of the final corner as well, maybe cost him some time. So let's see, as we actually see Buncombe running wide through the old hairpin, so that's going to cost him time. So level playing field once again. Let's see how this plays out.
Absolutely, yeah. You would have been wondering if Al hadn't made those couple of mistakes, you'd be wondering if it was just too little too late for Ross. But with 5 minutes left and just barely over a second gap between them, Ross has definitely got the chance. You can see he's on the ragged edge going through Coppice there onto the back straight. It looks like he's probably within a second now, I would imagine. We'll see the timing tower as they go over into the final sector. I think it's just before the S, as you see, changed to just over 0.7 of a second. So Ross has certainly got his mojo back, and he's certainly going to look to try and make a move over the next 5 minutes. But we're going to focus on the bigger picture at the moment, no pun intended. As you can see, this battle of four heading down through the Craner curves, it is very much a battle for the final points paying positions. You've got 7th through 10th at the moment. You've got, I think that's Alan Leon or Gabriel Affin. I think it's Leon who's just in front of them, one of the back markers, currently sitting plumb last, unfortunately. But as you see, John Munro very, very deep on the brakes going into McLean's, gets himself very close up behind Yannick Valenduc, and this is one of those where it's either going to end in tears or won't. But I think based on how it's gone for John Munro, I would imagine it might end with a couple of bruised egos as we go through this. You've got Matt Atkins, I think, just in front of Alan Leon as well. So 2 back markers these guys are going to have to deal with that are in their own battle as well. So it's not necessarily one of those where you can just let them come past. You've really got to be very careful. Fortunately, it looks like they're going to manage to get Leon down towards the Melbourne Loop. Lovely helicopter cam we've got going down through the Grand Prix section of this Donington Park circuit. Matt Atkins going wide and giving them a chance to get past. Alan Leon not necessarily doing the same, and Steve's going to be there with his virtual fist up in the air going, "Get out of my way," trying to get them out of the way. But it looks like they've all just about managed to get past, even though at certain points, Tim, it looked like it might not have been that easy.
It's pretty sneaky actually from Alan Leon. As we see Matt Atkins dropping to pit lane, I wonder if he's got an issue, because by keeping in the train, by costing Dean Allen and Steve Hinden a little bit of time through the Melbourne hairpin, Alan Leon actually gained a position in passing Matt Atkins. Those guys were fighting for 14th place in the standings. So clever driving from the driver of the Treble 7. A shame to see Atkins dropping to the pit lane, but really now in the final 3 minutes, a couple of laps to go, and McGregor has closed the gap further to Alex Buncombe, and the gap now half a second. No point in looking at the timing screens anymore, David. I feel like this one's about to happen on the screen in front of us. McGregor, he needs to carry that momentum that's closed the gap to the leader. He needs to just continue that pace that's seen him go fastest in the first sector of the previous lap, and go 0.4 of a second quicker than Buncombe on that previous time by as well. So let's see if he can get this one done. Time is running out though.
Absolutely, yeah. Penultimate lap, and it's all coming to a crescendo now, isn't it? They've got Matt Atkins a little bit further ahead. He's got a stop-go penalty, presumably for speeding in the pit lane when he just dropped into the pits on the last lap round. So he's only probably a couple of corners, if not less than that, ahead of them. So they've got him to circumvent as well. So it's going to be a chance for Ross to maybe make a move at some point. So he's even kicking up dust to go through. So they go through Coppice. Definitely going to be the penultimate lap. So there'll be one after this one. And Ross has got a fantastic run out through Coppice there. He's going to have a chance to get very much alongside Al if he can get the run out down in towards the S's. We've got shouts for Come On McGregor from CHS Racing in the chat as well. So they're supporting Ross in this one. And he's in the prime position to make this move. He's within a couple of tenths. He's not necessarily going to be able to make the move into the Melbourne Loop this time, but he's going to have one more lap to try and make that move. And it's going to be one of their moves, Tim, I think, where he's just going to have to lick the stamp and send it and ask questions later.
Yeah, I mean, he's running out of time, isn't he? This will be it as they cross the line to start the final lap. McGregor's got to get the job done, and I wonder whether that backmarker car in front, which is Matt Atkins, who has a stop-and-go penalty to serve, whether he's going to be getting involved, and we might see traffic playing a part at this It's come so close to deciding the race on a couple of occasions so far this evening, but through Redgate, McGregor looks to have had a great run out of there. And as they come round the Craner curves, he's looking all over the bumper of Buncombe to the outside through the final part of the Craners. Oh, he's so nearly tried to set it up into the old hairpin, but couldn't that time. Running through Matt Atkins sideways. Oh, that was so close. Wow, I do not believe that. That was, I'm sure Buncombe saw his race flash before his very eyes there, but they live to fight another day. Wow, that was very close, David.
Oh my word, second time that's happened to our Buncombe. It was Alan Leon, I think, through that exact same sequence of corners about 10 or 15 laps ago, and he's nearly had it happen again. It's almost a carbon copy, as deja vu to an extent, but Ross is coming down the Starkey Straight. He's as close as he has been this entire race. He's going to be setting up for a good run through the S's, I would imagine, try and get as best an exit as possible. Look at them both taking track liberties, to say the least, and Ross has got a fantastic run out through the S's. He's going to try and move to the Melbourne Loop. Al Buncombe shields the inside nicely, so it's going to be a case of cut back or round the outside. Looks like Ross is going to go for the cut back. We hit zero, so it's going to be the final couple of corners. You couldn't have timed that any better, as you see Ross McGregor looking to make the move. He's going to send it down the inside into Goddard's. Oh, it was close. Al Buncombe just shutting the door as they go through the final corner, and somehow Al Buncombe has come out through this hour-long race here at Donington Park, the winner of the final race of season 1 in this Cayman Cup Invitational, courtesy of Esports Designs. We've dropped back a bit further as we know Regan Mitchell is going to come through in third place, subject to a little bit of competition from Jack Noller in the corner, but he doesn't manage to make it, so Regan Mitchell will round out the podium. So we're now going to turn our focus to John Munro, Yannick Valenduk and Dean Allen. So these guys have shifted positions quite a few times over the last couple of corners. Yannick very close behind John Munro as they go through the S's. John getting very squirrely through there. Not the first time we've seen that. That's going to give Dean Allen a chance, and they're going to be looking to go 3 abreast into the Melbourne Loop. It's not going to work, surely. Dean Allen round the outside. He's going to attempt the cut back again, as Ross McGregor did and attempted on Al Buncombe. Steve Hinden gets a drive through for his troubles. That's going to promote Denise Pope into the points. I said it might happen, and it has, just not the way expected. Dean Allen getting squirmy. John Munro's gone deep into Goddard's. He's lost 2 positions, and Yannick Valenduk and Dean Allen have got 7th and 8th by the skin of their teeth at the last possible moment. Look at that, Tim. 8th and 9th, Allen and Munro separated by 0.08 of a second. Would you believe it? What an ending to that race.
Crazy close, wasn't it? It's mad to think that was the championship, second place in the championship on the line between McGregor and Buncombe through that final corner. And McGregor did all he could to get the move done, but a fantastic battle for those final points positions. Gutted for Hinton getting that drive through on the final lap. I don't want to mention it because he'll come up into the commentary booth and give us a slap on the cheeks, won't he? But look, again, a fantastic race to round out this season, and I think we saw some really good driving from those guys. Buncombe leading every lap. He did exactly what he needed to do, which was not succumb to the pressure. He didn't spend all the time looking in his mirrors, worrying about the cars and where they are behind him. Kept focus on the track in front and really managed to make hay while the sun was shining. But close job by Ross McGregor. Really nice to see him up there as well, fighting for the podium and fighting for the win, sorry. But also nice to see Regan Mitchell up there getting 3rd place, but he was chased home by Jack Noller. All in all, David, a thrilling finale to this championship season.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you can cap off a season like that, that was the perfect race for it, wasn't it? Goodness me. That last couple of corners, that last lap was absolutely ludicrous. Obviously, people going all over the place, fighting until the final corner, which is exactly what we were hoping and expecting from this season. And it certainly paid dividends. We'll try and get your top 3 in for a chat with yourself, Tim, in the next couple of minutes. So we'll be able to chat with Al, we'll get a chat with Steve as well, of course, and you'll be able to ask him about that mole on the back of his car, and we'll get a chance to see what they think. And Tim, I believe you're there now, so we'll hand over to you.
So I'm down here in the lovely interview booth with some of our drivers. So this evening with me, I've got 3rd place finisher Regan Mitchell for SimSport Racing. Regan, you were very happy with your 5th place finish last time out at Snetterton, but you did exactly what you needed to do this evening, which was get yourself higher up the grid in qualifying, and it was nice to take a podium, wasn't it, at the final chance?
Yeah, it was really nice. I think in you last week, I did say it was the plan to get a podium in the last race. So it was good to achieve that. And yeah, it did come from qualifying. I've only just got used to the car in qualifying. It's a shame it took me until the last race.
Well, better late than never, I suppose, Regan. But,
Yeah.
towards the end of that race, though, it wasn't the easiest final few laps. We saw Jack Noller was closing in. Were you really just managing the gap, or was there anything else at play, or were you just bringing it home?
Well, I had some bad pressure loss on the rears, on both rears, so it basically made the car more slidey at the rear, and I really struggled with that at one point, and Jack actually like halved the gap or something similar to that. But yeah, once I got used to it, I was able to somewhat hold it. It was scary though; he was catching quite a bit.
Well, congratulations on your result. And quickly, just a thought from yourself on your season. We've seen you battling inside the top 10. I think you're one of, you are the only driver to have scored points in every race this season. So how have you found the Esport Design Cayman Cup?
Yeah, even if I don't so much like the car, the racing's been really fun. It's probably the most fun racing I've had for a while, to be honest. Especially last week, coming from towards the back and fighting through everyone. Everyone was pretty clean.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Regan, and congratulations on your result this evening. And we'll go over to our race winner, Al Buncombe. Al, it was you've had some mixed experiences in this championship, but it must be nice to round out the season with a victory. But it wasn't exactly the easiest run to the flag, was it? That the record sheets will say you led every lap, but you certainly had Ross McGregor for company the entirety of that event.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was very happy to see the flag, I must be honest. It was we were just hot lapping there at the front, and yeah, to be honest, Ross was really kind to me, really kind to me. You know, there was a few places where he could have given me a little nudge, and he didn't. Really clean driving, and really enjoyed the race. You know, just stuck the setup on this evening at 6 o'clock, the same one I used in the other championship, and the car instantly felt good. So yeah, love the track and the car, and it's been a really good series. Really nice to get the win at the end.
Well, it was a good thing you weren't spending the entirety of the race looking in your mirrors, because there were a few occasions where lap traffic nearly snatched the race from you. Were you aware of the slower cars ahead, and what was your strategy as you were catching these guys? Did you hope to use them as a pick maybe to cause problems for Ross behind, or were you really just trying to get past them as soon as possible?
Yeah, well, sort of early on when it was Jensen and Ross quite close behind me, I was sort of really wanting JB to try and, you know, have a bit of a dice with Ross, and then that would let me get away, because I was having to defend occasionally. So I was hoping they'd have a bit of a scrap and slow each other down. But no, as far as the traffic goes, it wasn't too bad. They were quite spaced out, and it was just a point of where you catch them, really. I luckily got them fairly good. Yeah, a couple of the guys in front had a bit of a moment in front of me when I was coming up to lap them, which was a bit scary at the end. But no, it was really good, and great to get the win there at the end, as I say.
Well, just your final thoughts as well. That victory in the final round elevates you to second place in the championship. How have you enjoyed the 5 races of this Esport Designs Cayman Cup? It must be fun racing in a spec series here. You know, everyone in equal machinery. It's all about making those gains out on the track.
Yeah, for sure. I've you know, really enjoyed every race, if I'm honest. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't fault the whole series. It's been great. The Porsche is a great little car to drive, and thanks to JB for the setup. It's been great all season. So a little pat on the back to him. But no, it's been fantastic, and I shall be back fighting for the next one. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Al, for joining us in the interview booth, and congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
And we'll go over to our second place finisher, Ross McGregor. Ross, you got the win last time, and it looked like you nearly did the same this evening, beating a Rocket Esports car to the victory. How was your race? I'm sure you've learnt the back of Al's car very in every detail and every dent and scuff on that car, you know, intimately after spending an hour behind him.
Yeah, exactly. And I put every dent and scuff in it. No, it was a stressful kind of race because we were so close. And obviously, the early stages, Jensen was right behind me, and I was trying to defend and attack at the same time. But yeah, we're just kind of hot lapping away, and the concentration levels were extreme tonight. There's barely any chat, and it was Al like fully deserved it. He was on the pace. With like a few laps to go, kind of made a big mistake, so I was 3 seconds down. Then he made a couple of big mistakes, so kind of got the gap down again. But you can't really overtake. It's so difficult unless you do like a crazy maneuver, like a send. But yeah, all I could do was just stay as close as I can, as close as I could, and wait for a big mistake, and it never came. But it's funny because we're just saying after the race that we both saved up like our final track cut warning for the last lap. so both of us cut the chicane, try to get like both defender attack, and it never happened for me. So yeah,
we were chatting away in the comms box about race management. You know, we've heard so many times from drivers that they are conscious of tyre pressures, they are conscious of their use of track limits, and you know, an hour is quite a long time, isn't it, when you're so close to the competition?
Yeah, it was tricky. Thing is, these cars are so difficult. Like when you're following so close, like in the braking zones, because if you kind of mess up your braking, then like the ABS just goes berserk, and yeah, the car just runs on. So it's quite easy just to run into the back of someone. So yeah, you're always conscious of that. And obviously punctures are a constant sort of threat in these cars as well. So I think Al had like 24 psi in the rears by the end, and I had a couple of punctures as well, but it wasn't quite as bad. So yeah, it's tricky to handle. Again, well done to Al. That's his first win in sim racing, I think. So yep, not a bad one to win.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations, Ross, on your result this evening.
Thank you.
And we'll go over to our 5th place finisher, Turn 1 Esports, Oscar Sandberg. Oscar, another eventful race for you this evening. How was your the final round of this Esport Design Cayman Cup for you at Donington Park?
Oh, that was quite stressful, to be honest. I actually thought I will not end up in the top 5, you can say, with more people who got drive-thrus and had mistakes. I just kept it together, theoretically. Maybe a little bad preparations this time because of in real life stuff and in real life racing starts now. So it's just theoretically just to back up something in the setup, since I'm completely alone when it comes to setup building. Then I just need to somehow put something together. And yeah, with the qualifying went okay. I fucked up my best lap, but the race was just don't get penalties and hope for the best. P5 I think was more than enough for today.
And we've seen you've had some mixed experiences of this championship. You know, we've seen you fighting up towards the sharp end, right, for the podium, and then battling through to the points. You know, how have you enjoyed the close competition this season? You know, really have to leave everything out there on the track, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. Last time I was here, we talked about it, that qualifying is a big thing here because, yeah, the cars are completely the same, and we have some tracks where it's maybe a little tricky to pass on, what you maybe also saw today, but that makes the racing even harder, even better, and door-to-door is not bad. I mean, door-to-door is what everyone wants to see, and I think we also deliver a good show for the spectators.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Oscar, and congratulations on your result this evening.
Thank you.
And we'll head over to our 8th place finisher, John Munro. John, that might not have been the result you were hoping for, but considering the drive-through and indeed some fairly hairy moments out there on track this evening, 8th place is certainly a nice position to be in.
Yeah, fairly hairy is very, very kind of you, Tim. Yeah, I had a total disastrous race, but it was I was just feeling a bit tired tonight and struggling a wee bit. Yeah, qualifying was good. I was up the same group with the Zancho and Rocket guys, top 4, so really happy with that. And then I was able to hold on to them for the start of the race, but I didn't quite have the same pace as those guys. And yeah, just pushing too hard, I managed to pick up a few too many track limit warnings through the chicane and had a drive through. And then yeah, came back out, had some fun battles with Oscar and I think it was David as well. Some really nice battling there for a few laps, but I just got the chicane wrong again and had I just had an uncomfortable bounce, which sent me into the concrete on the left. And yeah, from that point on, it was just chaos. I then ended up in another great battle down in 7th and 8th, and that was really, really good fun as well. But I was just, by that point, I was really struggling. I couldn't get the thing stopped. And I think twice I managed to get back up to 7th and then made a mistake on the last corner and went straight on. So it was just me being stupid. But I just have to say it's been a great fun season to be a part of. So huge thanks to Steve and everyone for organising, and obviously yourselves, Tim and Steve Proudly on the broadcast as well. You guys have done a great job. And yeah, it's been thoroughly enjoyable, and well done to Al as well for his first win tonight.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, John, for joining us in the interview booth. I'm going to hop over to our series organizer, Steve Hinden, just for comment before we round off this evening's event. But congratulations on your result tonight. And we'll go over to Steve. Steve, look, an exciting event to end the season, a thrilling race up and down the order. But obviously, despite being a series organizer, you're out there on the track. And I'm not going to mention the drive-through. I'm going to leave that to you. But how was your race this evening at Donington Park?
It was a bit of a battle, to be honest with you. I've been working all week, so I've not really had it's driver excuse time. I've not had a lot of time to sort of test the car, and I had 2 punches after through the race. My brakes were all over the gaff, and it was just a proper fight all the way around. But I still enjoyed it. I still had some great racing with, I think it was Dean Allen. We were catching up with Yannick Valenduc, I think his name is.
Yeah.
John Monroe got mixed up in it at the end as well. It was great fun. It was great fun, and thank you to everybody again for taking part in it. It's a race series, but it's not a race series without races, and I've really enjoyed every minute of it. I hope everybody that's taken part in it has enjoyed it as much as I have, and people that are watching it have enjoyed it. Really good, really good.
Yeah, well, I think your race this evening was a perfect little snapshot of how this championship has been. It doesn't matter if you're fighting for the win, like we saw Ross McGregor and Al Buncombe going hammer and tongs at it for the race victory, but also there's been some very exciting battles down the order. But you're in that situation, Steve, where you're racing these cars around you, and it being a spec series where the cars are so similar. Well, I say so similar, exactly the same, only set up and the driver behind can make the difference. But what is it that you're looking for when you're out there on track? Are you looking for particular corners where you're quicker than someone? Are you looking for where they might make a mistake? Are you looking for traffic or cars coming up? How do you measure those situations to try and get a move done? Especially when you're locked in a battle so close.
I think for this series, my aim's not been getting drive-throughs. Even though I've got another one tonight, that was a deliberate one at the end. If you noticed, it was the last couple of corners, and I did it for fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're in a field like this. There's so many fast drivers in this, and it's a split second decision can cost you so much time, and you constantly looking for trying to do switchbacks and all sorts of stuff to try and make the places back up. But it's so hard, from first all the way down to 20th position. It's just so hard. Such good driving.
Brilliant.
Really
Brilliant. Well, that's the main thing, and thank you for giving us a fun drive through at the end there to have a giggle about. But I'm sure, Steve, before we go back up to David in the commentary booth, from all the drivers in the commentary booth here, and also those out there on track, from David, myself, and indeed Steve Proudly, broadcast director from Sim Sport Solutions. Thank you very much for a thrilling season, 5 races, but it's been short, sharp, and beautiful indeed to enjoy this racing action that you've managed to pull together. So thank you very much from everyone involved.
That's really kind, thank you. And like I said, it's a race series, and I can't do it on my own. It takes people like yourself to do the commentary, and you've done an amazing job. You and David, Steve's done an absolutely fantastic job on the broadcast. I can't fault it at all. And with the drivers, you can't have a race series without the drivers. And thank you to every single one of them that have taken part on. I know it's we've had a few drop off throughout the season, but life gets in the way of sim racing. So I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm a bit gutted that it's finished, I'll be honest with you, but there are some talks with people about Series 2, and I am thinking about it. So let's watch this space and see what happens.
We'll keep our fingers crossed indeed. But thank you very much, Steve, and thank you to the other drivers for joining us in the interview booth. And I'll head back up to David.
Cheers,
I'll be gutted if there's not a season number 2. I think Steve's just mentioned everything that I've been thinking throughout that interview process. Fantastic stuff. from everyone who was involved in that one. Brilliant stuff from all the guys who interviewed. And again, congratulations to Al Buncombe, Regan Mitchell, and Ross McGregor, of course, being the podium sitters this evening. Tim, it was a fantastic race, wasn't it? And it was very much a testament to the racing we've seen over the last 5 weeks, wasn't it? I'm sure you and I will agree that if a season 2 is on the horizon, then I'm sure you and I would be very much happy to call another 5 or so races this again, wouldn't you?
Well, it was the cherry on the cake, wasn't it, David? Is the best way I can think to describe it. We've been blessed with some thoroughly entertaining on-track action for the entirety of this season. And once again, we saw some big names, some fantastic drivers locked in battle for a race victory. Championship has been decided. They're not fighting for that overall crown, but they want to win the races. And that's what it's all about. But also further down the order, like I mentioned there to Steve and the other drivers, fighting for that final point position. The battle's just as hard, and that's really what's made this series, is that the level of competition, but also the willingness from the drivers to just get stuck in and have a good time out there on track. I very much enjoyed it, and it's been a fantastic experience up here in the commentary box with yourself, and obviously with Steve doing the broadcast. So yeah, really enjoyed my time, and I'm looking forward to, and keeping my fingers crossed that we can have a second season of this, because I think that's what we'd all like.
Absolutely, yeah. Couldn't have put it better myself. And unfortunately, all good things do have to come to an end, and that does mean it's the end of this season. Of course, congratulations to Luca Burke on winning the inaugural Esport Designs Cayman Cup Invitational. Congratulations to the top 3, of course, in the form of Al Buncombe and Ross McGregor, because top 2 from this evening as well. And thank you to all of you who have stuck around and watched even in the smallest part of one of the last 5 weeks worth of racing. If you've enjoyed it, then make sure you're subscribed if there is going to be a season 2 with, like I say, Tim and I and everyone else involved are keeping every digit crossed in the hope that we'll have another one. And I'm sure Steve will bring another fantastic series to us. But on behalf of myself, David Wrestle, Steve Proudley, our broadcast director, and my co-commentator this evening, Tim Fulbrook, thank you all very much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and hopefully we'll catch you on this channel again very soon. Thank you for now. Take care. Goodbye.